So welcome to season 5 of Own Your Divine Light show. I am Yarra Atlantica Miller, or otherwise known as Janet Miller. Our topic for this season is Divine Human Rising, recovering our sacred truth. With all we have gone through over the past years, these past 3 years, we are seeing humanity rise above all that we have been challenged with. We are here to bring through ways to move into and be aware of our true essence as divine beings of light. And we are becoming divine beings, recognizing and owning our sacred truths. And today I am so honored to bring you today's incredible speaker, Lowell Johnson. Welcome, Lowell.
Janet, thank you for inviting me. I've spoken publicly lots of times. I was in the hospitality industry forever, so you get to do that. But it's still, this scenario is still, it's not uncomfortable to me, but it's still foreign ground.
Right.
Especially the topic.
Sure. Oh, divine rising, is unusual for you?
Yeah. It's not what I was used to for 40 years running hotels
sure.
and casinos and resorts. And no,
Yeah.
It wasn't.
That's so true.
It should be, for your listeners, it should be indicative of, changes in energy that's going on in the planet. If you pay attention to that, there's an empathic side to all of us. If you pay attention to that, well, mine got kicked into high gear maybe 2 years ago. This journey that I've been on, although I've had an interest in my entire life, and experienced church like everybody else did, and came away with questions I still had that didn't really make sense to me, but something happened. Remarkable.
I'm going to tell them a little bit about you, Lowell. So let me read a little bit of bio, and then you can get into this a little bit, because I know
a little bit,
a lot. So whatever we're meant to go with that, you'll go. So perfect. Lowell is an amazing light worker. He works in Ascension. He's a blogger. He's a host of Starbucks Mystery Podcast, author of Starbucks Dimensional Adventures, and most notably, he is a Telos delegate. Now, if you don't know what Telos is, it is Middle Earth. And you're going to hear a little bit about that from Lowell today, because he had an amazing adventure. So if he wants to share, he'll share whatever he's meant to share on that today, because I know he's been talking about it forever. So but if you don't know him, you need to either hear some of it here and then also check him out on his other websites that he shares it on. So while he was drawn to spirituality when he was younger, Lowell lived his life like many of us do, getting a job, like he talked about, as a hospitality executive, which did allow him to gain a number of leadership abilities in public speaking, experience that helped him prepare for what his ultimate mission would be. Lowell's awakening started to unfold in 2015 and ultimately led him to his amazing experience on Mount Shasta, where he was invited into Telos by the Lemurians. Now, this is the big story. This is how Lowell totally broke out into his work that he's doing now. And he was asked to be an emissary for the reintegration with those of us on the surface as our world goes through its ascension process. So he has created an amazing website where you can find out more about all of his incredible adventures and the deep wisdom he has received. He's the Telos Traveler and Crystal Skull Dabbler. I love that. And the Multidimensional Traveler. Lowell Johnson, I am so thrilled that you are here today. Just so thrilled.
Thank you for having me again. That's still a mouthful. And honestly,
you know what? It's so good to tell people, because, people like to know, who is this person? We just like to know, because everyone loves stories. So you have some amazing stories. And, as I was looking at what you've been through the last 2 or 3 years, you've had amazing adventures and synchronicities in your life that have just unfolded in such a magical way for you. So you talked about your spiritual journey began in 2015. We talked a little about how you got into meditation, TM, transcendental meditation. And what was that door? How did you open that to this path that you're on? How did you actually get to want to study TM and then keep going?
They say that when you have your spiritual awakening, oftentimes that's triggered by some kind of physical malady that shows up. People that have, near-death experiences, you hear about that often, and you can't deny those stories. When you hear those people, they're authentic, and what they've touched on the other side and what they've come back to report. These are signs of the things that are actually tangible that we're starting to experience. When we can embrace the idea of multidimensionality, because we are that, then this will make a whole lot more sense than it might have. But that requires one to be open to things that they haven't experienced yet and things that may seem extraordinary, remarkable. My point is that if you're asking to experience those things, don't refuse them and don't poo-poo them, and don't say that they didn't happen when they begin to show you those things. So I had surgery for this TIA as a mini stroke in late 2015.
Sure.
And the doctor suggested that part of therapy, because I was going to be laid up for about a month, that meditation was among the therapies that he suggested. Well, I had always been interested in meditation and just couldn't find whatever that quiet place people are talking about you can get to. I, for the life of me, could not find it. When it came apparent that you need a mantra and that'll get you there, well, I didn't know where to get a mantra, and you certainly can't, go on the website on Amazon and find one. I had somehow been drawn back to the movie version of The Secret. I'd seen it 2 times before and remembered the content in it. Well, during this time I was laid up, I decided I'm going to throw it in the CD player and I'll watch it again. And all of a sudden, transcendental meditation is mentioned in there. I really hadn't noticed it the 2 times I'd watched it before, but that's what got my attention. So when I started to do the research on, the possibility of learning that technique, which is very specific. It's been handed down very specifically from Maharishi's mentor before him. And then it's very structured in the way that you go through the training. It's 4 consecutive days. The first day is 90 minutes and then 3 one-hour days after that. But I can tell you by the 3rd day, I sensed that place you can go get to. That's that quiet place where, if you want to see that as the opening of the field of probabilities where you place your intent, I could get there. Now, as time went on, I refined that, because every time you meditate, you don't get there every time. But once you do, it's the only place you want to be. After several months, I could get to the place where it doesn't take me a lot of focus on my meditation to achieve that level. And once you can, when I say you're totally in control of your vibration, now you definitely are. When you can quiet down your body and understand I'm connected to everything else around me, and then figure out where my intent wants to carry me, you're in a prime position to be able to do that, because you've kind of forgotten about just the physical part of yourself and what this can do. Because you've got to engage the ethereal part of yourself, the astral part of yourself, to be able to feel things beyond what our 5 senses can do. As things were coming into focus after that, after my recovery, lots of things coincided at the same time. My marriage was at a place where, nobody was bad people, but we were just drifting in different directions and had different interests. And so very amicably, we were going in different directions. It's all happening at the same time.
Wow.
So when I no longer, because I did the majority of the cooking because I loved it, I used to put, traditional meals together on a plate. Well, when I didn't have to do that for others, I just started to eat the way that the universe had in mind for me. I started craving different things, much more natural, not as much heavy food at all. And red meat, I'm not saying I don't love steak, I do. But if I have it once, maybe every 6 months, that's as much as I ever care to have it. In 4 months' time, I somehow had shaved 35 pounds off my being. Not that I did knowledgeably thought, God, I'd really like to lose some weight. I'd like to get into better shape. There were a series of things that had just kind of happened naturally when I allowed my inner being to just take control. The food I was eating was smaller portions and lots healthier. And all of a sudden, weight was just gone. I had a history of high blood pressure. It's gone. I've had arthritis because I was a hockey player all my life. It's gone. My joints feel like I was a young kid again, and I'm not a young kid. I'm 69 years old. So, but I feel like I did physically when I was in my early 20s. So something else has taken place inside. And I've had many people remark when they ask me, they're a little puzzled at how old I am, because there's some disparity. My son's 31, so they don't think I can be that old. So most of them still guess that I'm like in my mid 50s, because I still look, sound, certainly act like it.
Yes.
And when they find out that I'm a little further advanced along the linear line than that, they're kind of surprised by that. There were things that were beyond my control that contributed to all of that. When you just kind of lend yourself out to it and tune out all the white noise, watch the magic that shows up.
Yeah, and that's powerful what you just shared, Lowell, because I mean, even your doctor, I mean, the fact that a doctor recommended meditation, that kind of blows my mind here, because I've never heard of too many doctors doing that, but you had the right person. You always seem to have the right guidance, and that was just putting you on your path, and now you're there. I mean, so now you are on this amazing spiritual quest, which, I mean, you probably already found your work, you know what you're doing, but you went on this quest to Mount Shasta. So we'll just talk a little about that, because people have to hear a little about that, you know that. So tell us what you went to Mount Shasta on this journey as things were changing in your life and shifting.
Yeah, well, that was during COVID. It was a few months after. Well, COVID had locked everybody down in February. Right. So this was around the end of June. Conditions were starting to relax in California. And so that people weren't going to be, keep yourself locked in your house anymore. And as soon as I could, man, all I wanted to do was just find some outdoor space so that I could go find peace and solace again. I had been holed up with my son at his place with his roommates when the orders came through that you're not going anywhere. And I was in a transitional state coming back from a project I was working on in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Just finished that. And I thought I was going to be moving to Vegas. Went to see my son for a few days before I was going to close on the house. Well, everything changed.
Wow.
So anyway, when it got to be toward the end of June, people were starting to make plans to get back outside, I wanted to, just find some national parks. I'd been to the Four Corners area of the United States, and there were many places to go and explore. I'd been there before, and it was certainly an area I was interested in going again. And as I was starting to make plans for that, I started to see posts that some of these parks might not even be open. And when that realization came to me, Mount Shasta was planted in my head after that. Well, I thought, well, that's kind of an easy commute, because from where I was, it's about 4 hours. So either a morning or an afternoon, and I can get to Mount Shasta from where I was. I thought it was a good option. I had driven by it a few different times as I've been traveling around. I like to travel by car. I like to drive. And so I've been up on that part of California before and seen it. You can't miss it.
Right.
But it never occurred to me to go spend any time there.
Yeah.
Not then.
Right.
This time there was something that was about to happen. The plan was I was going to go the first week in July, and I was going to go for a week. My son, who was also, we're all out, there's nothing to do, and I were going to hook up either in Reno or Tahoe, because it would have been nearby, about a week later. And then, we'd spend some time together. As it got closer to the end of the week when I was in Shasta, there is something magic about that place. And all I wanted to do was spend my time on the mountain. It didn't matter where. I didn't need anybody around me. It just felt so peaceful and loving. And all you wanted to do was be there outside in the middle of all of this. And so when it got to be like Friday, I talked to my son, updated on my plans. I said, you know, there's something here I want to explore a little bit longer. And I said, do you mind if I plan on staying for another week? He goes, no, stay as long as you like. Well, by the time I finally headed back to Santa Rosa, because I had a commitment I had to go back to, I'd been there for 5 weeks.
Wow, that's amazing, because I've been there. So it's beautiful, but not for 5 weeks. And I was with a group. It's so much nicer when you did it all on your own, which
I was alone. And so really the beauty of it is I hiked different places and different areas all around, found every stream, every waterfall. I found everything that was nearby and enjoyed it, and didn't really go to the same place more than once, except on a couple of occasions. So when it was the end of the second week that we were in this area, if you drive out of Mount Shasta, the city, there's a road called Everett Memorial Highway that'll let you drive up as high as you can on the mountain. It gets you to just short of 9,000 feet, and a place where, you know, there's lots of trails that kind of spawn off up there. Well, that's my favorite spot. Okay. I didn't factor it in when I was going to go spend time, because I was only factoring in, you know, my daylight time and hiking and enjoying the energy. I never thought of how wonderful it would be to stargaze in an environment where there's no light pollution like that. That was a whole nother set of circumstances that were just wonderful. And I was there long enough to experience it in its beauty in different phases. When I first got there, the moon was new. And so there wasn't any moonlight that cast. So when you get to see the Milky Way from there, under those circumstances, it is vivid. Now, the moon plays a different role. So when she gets full, you can't really see the Milky Way the way that you can when she's not so bright. But those are the nights that I learned to turn around and look at Shasta. Wow. And the first night that those conditions were prevalent was the night I saw the first UFO that I'd seen. I'd heard, you see them a lot. And so I decided I was going to face the mountain this day from the parking lot I was sitting in. So the moon's behind me. And I saw what I thought were a couple of shooting stars almost over the mountain. Now, Polaris, the North Star, is right over it. And the last shooting star I think I saw was coming from almost where Polaris was and kind of shot down toward the mountain, toward the top of Shasta. And so it shot down, and then for a second it disappeared, and I thought it was like every other shooting star, it just goes away. Well, as soon as it took a 90-degree turn and went, okay, that was not a shooting star.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I got confirmation, because this happened at exactly 10:58 at night, and there were people in the parking lot around me. There was another couple 2 doors down, 2 cars down, that said, "Did you see that?" I'm like, thank you. Yes, I did. Thank you for the validation. So that, and then a trip to Sedona, where, you know, there are people that do that kind of thing for a living. They've got some military grade infrared goggles that take you at night to see that. I saw so much traffic that there's no question in my mind anymore that those things that are moving around the sky, you know, are things that are moving around in the sky. They're not planes. They're not satellites. They're not anything like that. And the more that we get used to that idea, the faster contact is going to advance. We are, you know, some of us have been brought along to prepare us for the beings that are here dimensionally and have been on the planet. But there's a whole extraterrestrial tribe of, you know, people that we're connected to, beings that we came from. We're starseeds that came from somewhere else. And there is galactic family that's all assembling right now to help Earth, because the focus is here on her ascension process. That's why all of these things are accelerating the way that we did. You know, to listen to me tell this story right now is very different than a story I would have told 4 years ago, because I was like everybody else, living the life. You know, I was an executive back then in the casino business, making 6 figures and a bonus and having lots of wonderful times. Yeah. And then the universe says, you should be doing something different. So I resigned from that.
Wow.
And 6 months later, found myself going to places like Shasta and picking up on energies. And in the end, I meet a hybrid who connects me with six-dimensional light beings. Now, that's a broad thing to say and a lot of things to try and assimilate all at once, but that's what happened. And when it was taking place, there were photographs that were being taken of the environment. So when it was going to come time for me to share my experience, I was going to have photos to go along with it so that you might dispute my story.
Claims, yeah.
And you might even dispute the pictures, but you can't dispute the pictures anymore. And now, people have seen those kind of phenomenon in other places, that they know that that stuff was authentic. In fact, the day that all that had taken place, where these beings were around me, it was 3:00 in the afternoon. So I'm not quite sure what this light show showed up like with the other people that were there, because there were a dozen people total at the site that day. I was shown that, and those pictures were to demonstrate for others that that wasn't going to be unique to Lowell. He wasn't some special person that was chosen and he's the only one that's ever going to go through this. I know different. I know that that was to demonstrate I'm the first one, not the only one. And the rest of you should get used to the idea of you in that picture, because you're next. All of that assistance that's coming from us, from our dimensional brothers and sisters, is here now if you're open to it. And they're trying everything they can, every ethereal 2x4 they're going to hit us upside the head with to get our attention and prepare us for what's to come. We've been so entranced for eons, as humans have been. Wasn't that we weren't tinkered with in the past? Yes, okay, we were, but we've come to terms with that. We're looking beyond that now, because there's assistance coming that didn't rely on humanity all kumbayaing together on the planet. That wasn't really going to happen. When I got a sense of my connectedness with everybody else, and I still understood that Earth was this crazy experiment of duality, that when I watched those poles get more extreme, I tried to think for myself, can I think of one topic where everybody, even the polar opposites, would agree? I can't come up with it. I don't know what it would be. And so in my mind, it was going to take a cosmic reset just like this to change things. Sure. And that's what's coming.
Sure. And I know you were really profoundly affected by the light beings that you met when you went into Telos. So do you want, there's different things I'd love you to talk about. Like, how did the light of Telos affect you? Or what is light? Tell us what you think light is. How does this light affect us? Because you're saying we're going to have this change. And what is your, how do you feel about it? What do you see?
All right. Well, let's peel this onion back a little bit while I unpack this to the best of our abilities. In order for you to understand your dimensional being and the fact that in the end, you're an electromagnetic being, just like any other sentient being, including planets, sentient beings. So we have been influenced by photon energy that comes our way, that's emitted from the sun. Everything that spews out. So if you're watching these CMEs that she's putting on, the coronal holes that are blowing stuff our way, watch the impact that that's having on Earth. While this has been taking place, our magnetic field that protects Earth has been breaking down for a while. In my mind, it's in preparation for the day that this last batch of enhanced photon plasma coming our way finally does what it's supposed to do and triggers Earth into her next level of consciousness. And every sentient being that vibrates along with her will also go. Everything is about to change cosmically.
That's a big statement.
It is a big statement. And, it took me layers of understanding to come to that conclusion. And I'm happy to help others get there the same way that I did. And that's what the website was for. It wasn't to show people a path. This wasn't a map of how you get where I am. Really, I put it out there to prove it to me. I was the one who needed to have these things proven to me. And when I didn't have a tribe around me, when these extraordinary things started to happen, who do I ask?
Exactly.
Well, they show up over time. Those assistances are placed in your path because I really didn't, I knew I had inner guidance that was coming my way, but I couldn't tangibilize that, if that's a word. I couldn't comprehend that from a 3D perspective. I had to allow myself to just, okay, if that was so, then, give me some indications. And the indications I've been asking for, that encounter with light beings, the day that happened, was when the table was finally set for me to have an encounter with light beings. At the beginning of it, when the preparations were being made, I was told to, get your intent, whatever it is that you want to get out of this, just let us know. And there were two things that had led up to that moment. And one was a relationship I was going to have with higher aspects and my ability to be able to allow them to, pour through me. One in particular that I'll just leave there for right now. And then I had questions about the emerald tablets and crystal skulls, both. Well, I was going to get answers to it. And the answer was going to be that if one light being showed up during any of this, I would believe what you're telling me. And anything that you want me to do after this, you just give me the resources and provide me with that. I will move forward. Well, not one showed up, 4 showed up.
Wow. So they really wanted you to get on in line with your path. Yeah. Here's
what took place that day. There has been this rule, if you want to look at it that way, that humanity was to be left on their own and progress the way and evolve that they were supposed to, all on their own. So galactic assistants, they were all hands off. I've concluded that all changed in the 40s, especially after we dropped the first bomb and demonstrated what we could do to the planet. That, in my opinion, is when that all hands off rule was relaxed. And so here, if you think about it, I was born in 54. When you start to understand the stories of that assistance that was going to incarnate here as indigos and Blu-ray children, man, I fit that mold. I came back here with the intention that I was going to assist in this in some way. I didn't understand back then because I incarnated with that. My memory banks had been wiped like everybody else, but somewhere along the way, there were going to be triggers and assistances that were going to help me remember who I was and what I was doing here. And there would be others. It was when I kind of came to terms with that, I had wondered when this first happened and this visit where the mountains seemed to open up and I got to go visit a realm that no one else has for a while, but people are aware that it's there. That's when it kind of became real. But everybody has the ability to fall in line and sense these differences in dimensionality. And I think that I got to be chosen to be somebody to help you understand it. That's why it was important for me to understand it first. I know there's going to be lots of people that are going to have questions about this way beyond their capacity to understand it. And I understand that I was gifted with a decent level of intellect so that I can comprehend these things and put them in terms that your little 3D mind can understand. So you met with these light beings and they told that convinced you that this is what you're meant to do now. This is your path. You have a specific role to play. Can you tell us a little more about that specific role, just a little bit? Well, let me back up because I want to address what actually happened that day.
Okay. Oh, sure. Go ahead. Yep.
There was some, when I said that we were all hands off, there was physical contact that had been made.
Okay.
I could feel what took place while I was lying there that day. I heard their presence. And then there was a point at which I just felt like this cool energy charge that went from my crown all the way through my body while they were circling me. So I came away with, I knew that there's an alchemist inside of me anyway. And the idea that I can transmute negative energy into light is just something that I know that I possess. Well, that got supercharged. When they passed that baton physically, then that was when I got to a whole nother level of knowledge about light and what's going to happen with it. We've been living on this photon energy I just described, we've been getting, and every sentient being is affected by it. We get affected by that at a cellular,
Oh, yes. People have so many, they feel exhausted. They have a little brain fog. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on. They can have a TIA, like they can have all kinds of things happen. It's not always physical, it's energetic, but it's hard to connect that unless you in this realm, and kind of hearing it from you might help people look at it first a different way,
Yeah, I'm hoping that it does, because really these weren't concepts that were really open to me, when I first started them either. You have to really be open to things that you don't understand. Exactly. And then trust me when I tell you the universe is going to show them to you. I'm convinced that when people hear me, I'm just a regular guy like the rest of you, because I am. My physicality is no different than anybody else. So when I point out that these abilities that I've got, you have everything you need to be able to do the same things I do, if you choose to focus on it. And you don't let this world distract you from that. That is what takes effort. But if you choose to, I'm not the only one that this is happening to. And I want to point out that how rapidly this is happening with me. It seems as though, I can't tell you how many interviews I've done like this now, Janet.
No.
But however, so it would seem like my journey is very mature. And in some ways it is. There's a lot of Akashic information that has come forth that, has kind of come to my assistance again. But that is new information. Right. I'm starting to run into others that have heard about my story, crossed my path from all over the freaking planet, and they're beginning to experience the same things. Here's what tells me the collective is all being affected by this same energy that we've been ignorant to for a long time. And that's just because nobody's really focused on it. Well, I was.
Do you think it's because we're ignorant, or do you think it's because some of it's been hidden because of distractions? Like you call it the white noise, which I love that. I think that's brilliant because, we play white noise for babies to soothe them and make them, lull them off to sleep. Well, white noise lulls you off to sleep. So this is what we call sleepwalkers. If people aren't awake, we call them, sometimes you say asleep because they're not aware of their spiritual parts that you're describing right now, which are, it's so wonderful to hear that you awaken to all that,
Yeah, the metaphysical side of all of us is screaming for attention.
Exactly.
And it's whether we decide to nourish it or not is totally up to us. But after a while, I was getting messages from people I didn't know, unsolicited things. And after like the third one, you can't ignore them anymore.
So when you talk about metaphysical nourishment, what do you mean? Like, how do you do that? And what would you recommend for people?
Well, here's where you start with your meditative state intact. Yeah. So I can't get you there. That's something that people really have to develop on their own. And once you do, then you're already connected to the planes I'm describing. And it's up to you to decide how you want to wander them and what you wish to share with others, because that's the next thing. You are inevitably going to come up with scenarios you're going to have lots of questions about. And even when I started to make references to how mature my journey seems to be, believe me, there are times I'm still looking for clarity. And I wish there was somebody that could explain to me what new wrinkle has come across my path.
Yes. And, for me, I think, the whole COVID experience has helped us to come to more stillness. It put the world in stillness, which in a way was a gift. Some people may not look at that. And I've said this a million times, but yet, people when you go into just a still point, you can just slow your life down for 5 minutes. That's a meditation. It doesn't have to be complicated, you know. We always complicate things. So when you talk about people can find their own, well, find their own, it could be a walk in the forest and just, you know, take a walk in a quiet area, a garden, somewhere that you come to like an inner peace. That's meditation, do you think?
I can't get to that place without peace and quiet.
Right.
And so I have a hard time trying to imagine how anybody else does it when they've got work, family, hobbies. How do you cut out the time to do that? Until I was mindful about I was going to start to meditate this time and this time during the day, and that became a pattern. Just like you say, it becomes part of who you are then. And not really, I don't have to work on it so much, but you have to work on it at first, like any other human habit. We have to develop that over time. And once it does and it becomes part of us, here's where that grounding I have is just kind of set in stone.
Right.
I've done this for so long that I know I can achieve that state and get to that field of probabilities pretty much on demand right now. And what I get to experience is pretty remarkable. I think it's because lots more of these veils are being pulled back right now so that we can see them.
Yes.
They're meant for us to see.
Absolutely. I so agree. And so, you know, when you had all this start happening to you, and then you met these light beings, you had all this energy, which is light, which I call light. Do you call that light? Do you call that love? How do you describe the light that you have?
It is, well, it's light, it's tangible. I also think that, you know, we think that when we breathe, that's our life force. I had it described to me as adamantine particles of light. So when we breathe in, that's what we're taking in, and that's what we're processing. I was describing the way that I anchor myself when I want to anchor my light somewhere, because as light workers, that's what we do.
Yes.
When I go to Shasta, there's an energy exchange, but I don't go because Shasta is going to give me something. It's my job to plant my light there and leave that behind. So when I do that, I see myself having these infinity breaths that pass through my core, behind my head, and reach up to source, pull more light down, and then bring it back through my core and then through my root. And I do that 4 times, and each time it gets a little bit deeper in earth, where I plant, just like you explained, you were reaching for the crystal and parts of you are grabbing that. That's how I anchor myself there. And then 3 times I pulled down a lot of light and left it behind.
Mm-hmm. And what Lowell's talking about, and I'm just going to tell the audience, because we did talk a lot before the meeting, and yet, and I did a grounding exercise, which they can find on my website. And they've heard me before if they've watched the show, because I sometimes do it right in the start of the show. But today I wanted us to just kind of jump in a little. But so when you started to connect to all these light beings, all this light, how did that affect your relationship, say, with yourself, with others around you, friends? How did you feel? How did you shift? Like, I want to hear what happened personally.
Well, there's a lot of answers in that.
I'm sure. Whatever you
if
feel
I
is
start
right.
with just myself first, I see things in a whole different frame of light now.
Yeah.
That I know I am connected to everybody else, including the people who might not agree with their perceptions. I chalk it up as that's their journey, and they're learning their own lessons. And in the end, like I said, the collective benefits from the lessons they're learning, the good ones and the bad ones. So even the shitty lessons somebody's learning out there, a person I don't agree, in the end, I benefit from that. Mm-hmm. And all my job is, if I respect everyone's sovereignty, is to allow them and provide whatever support I get to along the way. And in exchange, I get the same in return. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, how that affected family and friends around me, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
I had been used to, though, for a while, as I had been consulting in Louisiana, I learned new family and tribe that was there. But largely, I spent the majority of my time alone before and after work. And that was fine with me. I was getting into a meditative practice then. So I want to think that I was preparing myself then, while I was still working, for how my existence was going to continue once I left that realm, my training and how I prepared myself every day, that's where it all began. And that's just kind of became part of who I am and continued along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And, I know that you have a lot on your website, so we're going to share that after. People will hear about more of that. They can go look you up and listen to your story, that you'll get the in-depth, story about your trip down into Telos. They will, even see some of the photos that you brought through that were just incredible when you were going through a lot of activations. So, so what kind of physical, you told us a bunch of your physical effects was you lost weight, so much dropped away from you. This is all that light coming into your body, right? This is what the light does, right?
It's funny you say that. There are some other physical sensations that I want to bring to people's attention so that they don't ignore them or that they don't dismiss them. Because for the longest time, I was starting to get, and you'll find this interesting today in this moment, and I'll tell you why in just a second, that I was getting, it's not tinnitus. When I get ringing in my ears, I understand that when it's in my left ear, I'm getting spiritual downloads. And when it's in my right ear, I'm getting physical downloads. So those mechanisms where we're storing away some of that photon light energy that's coming our way, that's assisting us in opening our DNA. It's restoring things we've known. You're not learning anything new, Jan. No. You're having restoration to those things that you've stored in all the experiences you've had. All that's coming back to your command, because where we're going in the next realm, we don't forget it anymore. We have access to all of that. So remember how unique yours were and the role that you're going to play in the collective, because all of that is coming to our command. When people are moving along now, and I get downloads since the beginning of the year more frequently, like several times a week, not several, multiple times a week. There was a phenomenon that began in Shasta in October, right after the light being experience. When I went back to kind of at the end of the season, I was going to go alone, spend some time up there, and I wanted to take advantage of this technique that Kumu had taught me on how you call in light beings. Okay, well, you say I can do this, I'm going to try. So I found a spot out in the forest where there wasn't anybody around, because I was going to scream these heliomes out, and I'll be damned if they didn't show up.
Wow.
Now, why I'm telling you that today is because when we were talking just a moment ago and I got distracted, I got a download in my left ear, and when I looked at the time, it had just flipped to 11:11. So you take what you want from that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's interesting. I never thought of it as one ear being the download for the spiritual and one for the physical, because I've gotten those ringing in the ears too. Probably, I don't know if it's several times a week, but every now and then I'm like, oh, that's a download. And then, sometimes it does switch ears. A lot of times it's left for me. But
first time it happened to me, I was in Shasta, and I didn't know, I knew I'd gotten downloads because it kept me up that night. It was the second day of 3 where I was out in the forest calling in light beings. And the second night, I didn't know until I got up the next morning and looked in the mirror. And when I did, my left eye was a freaking bloodshot.
Oh, wow.
Now, I couldn't understand why. It didn't hurt. It wasn't itchy, none of that. But oh my God, something happened. 5 times now total since then, that same phenomenon has taken place when I've had some significant downloads. I get that. So I ended up starting to take pictures of myself so I could timestamp when these happen, so I could begin to understand the phenomenon.
Sure.
There are 5
kind
instances.
of like a validation for you. It's like your physical validation. Yes, this is real. This is happening. Yes. And this is what we get. I mean, things are very normal. It's funny because all the things that we think, it's not like watching, Fantasia or watching, Harry Potter or something magical, that you see these magical things in front of you. I mean, you can't see light beings, obviously. We do get to see this, when you're open to it and you're ready and you're out of fear. The fear has to be gone, because they know that if you can't handle it, it's not going to work. You're not going to get anything from it. So Yeah, what you're bringing through is amazing, because you know, people, I always used to think, oh, isn't it wonderful to see like magical, but you do get the magic. It's in a different way. It's a more grounded magic that comes through, but you totally can see beings sometimes, because I've had visions every now and then. I don't, you know, I haven't called in light beings that way or anything, but it's pretty magical when you can say you do that. And
You know, it's just a matter of time, and that's one of the things I was, entrusted to help others learn.
So what were they?
I don't know.
They're bringing you information when you call them in. Is that what it is? Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
And then you bring it to us and share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, the majority of the message is that the rest of you are about to be enabled, upgraded.
Yes.
There's another process that is taking place where there are light codes, and the ones I was suggesting that I get in my right ear, those physical changes that we're having, there are some light codes that we're getting that's wrapped in that. We've been living on half oriotronic light. This light that we've been receiving and living on as a sentient being on this planet was like half spectrum light. Let's just call it that to give you a frame of reference. But the stream that's coming in our direction now, since we've moved into another part of the cosmos, that precession of the equinoxes, when that ended in 2012, our entire solar system now is bathed in a band of this enhanced light coming in our direction. Our bodies are not capable of processing full spectrum light in this manner. So those changes that are taking place physically for us at a cellular level are preparing us to hold greater light and higher frequencies. Because, my friend, in this next phase, you're also being changed inside. These bodies no longer exist in the next realm. We are not carbon-based beings anymore, that where our light bodies take crystalline form, and that is also changing us while we're sitting here talking.
Right. And isn't that the magic? Isn't that the magic we're experiencing, when you want to put it that like I call it the divine being, the divine essence coming into our physicality as a human. So we're embodying our divine essence in the physical, which is something that really hasn't happened before.
No, that's a mouthful to say.
I know.
And when, people on the outside are going to have a tough time understanding, what do you mean embody more? Because when that had been suggested by guides through some channelings I had been through, they said, you must embody more. And I go, what the hell does that mean? That there's more of your aspect, your higher aspect coming through. But in my case, there are other higher aspects that kind of want to borrow me so that they have things that they need to express. There's a wonderful friend of mine who's a channeler who speaks many different types of light language.
Yes.
And in my sessions with her, I've become adept at understanding them all. I know what they're saying. It doesn't depend. I can tell that those are different beings because their cadence and all that is different.
Oh, how interesting.
It's things that I was supposed to understand. Yeah, I can't help others understand it, but I can guide those that were meant to understand it better than I. There are people that speak light language. That's not my gift. Right. But I have an appreciation for those that do, and I can understand the messages that are coming through.
So you're the translator.
I am, but that's not my purpose.
No, not your sole purpose. That's just one of your gifts that's coming through. It's one of your gifts. Yeah, it's just a gift.
One of the last things that the Lemurians had expressed back in June was that they're ready for all of humanity to understand the way that they vibrate. They're ready to communicate, and we just have to get to the place where our vibration matches theirs. They're not going to give it to us in English anymore or any other language. you understand their vibration, and we stop using these words anyhow. We're all going to telecommunicate with one another, and bilocation and telekinesis and all these things are just part of our natural being there.
That's it's amazing to hear, but it's important to hear because there is so much available for us. Like I hear people talk about, well, you look at those movies, what were those movies like? It was Wolverine, one comes to mind, but there's other like children having spiritual powers that people reject them because they're too scary, because they're so powerful that nobody can control them. Well, why do we have to be controlled, first of all? But second of all is when you're using those beautiful energies and gifts that we have from the heart, you're never there to hurt anybody. You're just there to bring more light onto the planet and to, live in love, basically. I mean, that's what I look at it as. What do you see as the total outcome? What do you feel is your sacred truth that you have discovered from all that you've experienced now?
I want to address that what you said was a really important point to make.
Go ahead.
And that the comprehension that we think that we have and the conditioning and the things that we've watched was all very fixed, so that when we look at, like Wolverine, and we see movies with kids that had special gifts, we all think that they need to protect themselves from something else.
Exactly.
Well, we're not in the next realm. We don't do that. We're not fighting with one another. There's no physicality. There's no wars or any of that then, but we have to come to terms with that. The kids that I'm seeing, and I have seen for a while, quite honestly, you've seen them. They look like they have wisdom beyond their years and speak in ways that you don't really understand. Here are the gifts that we've been given if we would stop to listen to these kids, because just because we think that they're younger than us in this linear realm, who knows what they have stored from their past experiences that they're bringing now at their age. I'm also convinced that generation that's being brought into incarnations now aren't as handicapped as we were when we come in, that I think that they have a greater command of more of their DNA active, that it doesn't need to be restored, and they just come in knowing more than we did at that stage.
Yes, well, as I've heard people say, they come in without the veil. They call it the veil, which is like you lose your memory of what your gifts were as that divine essence that you are. I'm using
that's exactly it.
Terms, but they're coming in with full wisdom, and their DNA is all online, so they
intact.
Don't have to. We have to accept them. We don't want to put them in the boxes of autism and all these other little labels that come up for the kids. And
think about it, because Sherry does some work with the autistic kids too.
Yeah, Sherry.
And let's just look at that from another perspective. Those kids have some profound lessons to teach us too. Exactly. They've chosen the lessons and the path that they chose. If we believe that part of our incarnations is I get to choose the scenario. I choose my parents. I choose all of those things. And when I come in, so you have to think, if you believe that for a minute, those autistic kids also chose that path too. For whatever reason they chose, they were going to learn those lessons on our behalf as well. Doesn't make them, if we stop looking at them as different, we're going to fail to see the lessons that we were supposed to get from them.
Exactly. There's so many ways now to look at the gifts that we're given. When you take all the 3D labels off of them, you got to get those labels off, if you want to put it in that term, and just open the doors to whatever. Just be in your heart and open it and be available to learn something new from everybody, no matter what the age is. I mean, as long as you feel it in your heart. If you don't feel that they're giving you what you want, that's not the person to listen to. But as you're saying, when you allow these young people who have so much wisdom, and they will tell you in different ways. And the parents, like I know Sherry Divan will also be on the show, guys. So hang in there, you'll see her event soon. And Lowell and Sherry do amazing things together. Lowell and Sherry are collaborating in so many ways, because Lowell is also an illustrator artist who is bringing through amazing artwork of the inner earth, of the magical children, of the fairy world, many dimensions that he is just guided to do these amazing artwork. Oh, you'll have to see it. He has a website, and he has information on the Red Bubble. You can go to the Red Bubble, which is an app you can download, and you can see some of his work there, and go on his website, which we'll have at the bottom of this at the end. But anything particular you want to, I know, and this question, I know someone asked me, went, oh no, when people ask me, but what truth or observation do you see showing up now for you or for us, for humanity, that you can share that would help people, and right now in this challenging time we're kind of still in?
Well, I have nothing but encouragement and hope and love for everything that's going on. Now, that sounds like I'm ignoring all of the crap going on in the world. That's what I refer to as white noise, and
Yes,
we
exactly.
talked about that a little while ago. If you really comprehend the idea of, what Einstein taught us a long time ago when he understood what quantum and quantum field and quantum physics was, and if you can wrap your head around the idea that nothing exists until the observer observes it, that's when it comes into reality. That's
right.
Stage one.
Yes.
So when you think that that's true, then that means that the things that I think and my intentions are the things that are going to come into my reality. Well, that couldn't be truer, guys. And no one has more experience with that over the last 4 years than me. When you set your mindset in a particular way, that is exactly what the universe responds with in abundance. So when your thoughts are spent on positive things, I get nothing but that in return. I should mention, by the way, because we were talking about my maladies and that, and the last time I saw a doctor was the follow-up in January 2016 with my surgeon. I haven't seen a doctor since then and haven't had a need to. I didn't fall susceptible to the vaccine. My body is fine. And it's always been my mindset that things that come out of a lab don't belong in my body. That it's designed to take care of itself naturally if I feed it the right stuff. So putting in some kind of other substance because somebody told me I had to or I should doesn't really resonate with me.
Well, natural immunity, what is wrong with natural immunity? That's what I say.
There's no money in it.
Well,
that's the short answer.
That is the ultimate answer right there. That is the ultimate answer. So
it is.
I appreciate what you just said so much. And I know you have a free gift. Do you remember what your free gift is? I'm looking right now. I can tell you if you want me to. Lowell has a free gift for everybody, and he also has an offer. And your gift is, let's see. Oh my. Well, it'll all be on the website. So we'll just have that way. And everything you want to know about Lowell will be on the website at the end of this talk, which has been so wonderful and such a pleasure having you, Lowell. And, thank you so much for you choosing to pursue your sacred truth. You've opened the door and you're showing us the realities that we can create and the divine human we can become. And this is exactly, you've stepped into your divine human, and as we rise in frequency, your experiences and willingness is our mirror. And it's also our measure to acknowledge that all things are possible. I mean, I can't say any more about that, but the divine human is rising, as you're saying, because you're showing us exactly what you've been going through, and you are the validation. And so we hold so much unlimited potential and gifts as we create our new earth realities. So I'm thanking you so much for stepping into having the courage to step into what you know, and you are owning your own divine light. And as we raise our hearts and frequency, we are nourished by the love of the universe. So I am so grateful for you being here. You are, I don't know, the cosmic explorer. I don't know. There's so many ways.
I like that title.
Yeah, you are.
Like
You're the cosmic explorer, really. And thank you again so much, Lowell. And I am Yarra Atlantica Miller, the soul name of Janet Miller, and I will see you all in the next episode. Thank you.